Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to call to order the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors meeting for January 4th. And we're going to have our flag salute. And I've asked a special person this evening, Andrew, to lead us in the pledge because we're celebrating his completion of his first year as our Parks and Planning Administrator. So if you wouldn't mind, Andrew, lead us in the pledge.
That's more than I should. Nice.
Right hand over the heart, ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Andrew, very much, and congratulations on a successful first year, and we look forward to even better years.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please, Jody.
Director Lang,
Here.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Director Huffer, Director Cussworth,
Yes.
Director Buss,
Yes.
All present. Item number 3, special presentations. We have none this evening. Item 4, items from the public. And we do have 2 speaker cards. And if you're representing a particular group, you'll have 5 minutes. And if you're speaking as an individual, you'll have 3 minutes. And keep an eye on that timer because that's going to tell you when your time is up. Our first speaker is Linda Hoare. Linda? Oh, to the podium, please.
Thank you. I'm regarding the pickleball issue regarding Triumpho Park. Most of the homes built around the park were built in 1971 to 1975. They were all single pane windows. Most of them have not converted to double pane. The park is surrounded by hills, which makes the park like an echo chamber and carries the sound into the neighborhood when there are loud noises of any kind. The birds that are currently reside include the owl, which accordingly, the loud constant noise of the battered ball will affect them. Currently, there are 3 tennis courts. During the summer months and on weekends and evenings, they're completely full with players waiting. The pickleball courts will be 4 courts inside each one, a total of 8 courts, because they're using 2 of the court, want to use 2 of the courts. That's 16 players. Then it's also 16 players waiting. That would take up 32 parking spaces when there's only 28 parking spaces inside the park. On the other side of the park, there are 28 other spaces, but that's usually where the mountain bike climbers use the park and they go up into the mountains over there. So that side of the park parking lot is always full. There are 2 baseball courts, 1 volleyball court, a practice basketball court, picnic tables, children's area, the school that uses the park, a few church groups who meet there. Kids play their soccer practice, their football practice. There are senior groups there. There's dogs that walk. Everybody walks their dogs there all around the park. So now what's going to happen if this should go into effect? There'll be no parking inside and everybody will have to park inside the whole neighborhood. There are 360 homes in the village HOA in the park area there. And all of them come to the park from time to time and with their friends to have different events for a few hours. And there is an acceptable noise because it's only for a few hours and it's only once in a while. If we have the pickleball courts, which are an event which is very popular right now, they'll be there 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. They'll have competition tournaments and it'll be so noisy, the neighborhood will not be friendly anymore. It'll become commercial and it'll become a public nuisance. So I'd like you to reconsider taking out 2 of the courts and not even letting the tennis players even have their tennis practice or they're playing there. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate the information and your feelings on that. Second speaker, Molly Mauer.
This is that. Okay. Hello, my name is Molly Mauer. Since 2012, Borderline and the Rotary Club of Westlake Village together have put on the Oak Country Music Festival here in Thousand Oaks. And each year, the three events that would get approved were Chili Cook-Off, Conejo Valley Days, and Oak Heart. I'm here on behalf of the Borderline community, and there's some of us here to represent today as well. And we're here to ask you to put Oak Heart back on the list of approved events. Since Oak Heart first came to Thousand Oaks, it's always been the patrons of Borderline that have teamed up with the staff to put on the concert, and also the patrons really have been the reason why it has been as successful from 2012 to 2019. The people of Borderline were not included in the Rotary of Westlake's versions of our event last year. And really for the last 5 years, the patrons, the families, and the Borderline staff have done everything they can to keep the Borderline memory alive. And I'm sure most of us here know that this past November 7th was the 5-year remembrance of the Borderline shooting. And we came together as a community to support each other through a huge milestone for our community. And on top of that, we had to deal with the news of the demolition of the original Borderline building, which came as a shock to a lot of us and just kind of added to what we were already going through. After seeing the building being torn down, I decided to start a petition to ask the people of Thousand Oaks and the Borderline community as a whole to join me if they agree with me and feel that they also want Oak Heart to return to Thousand Oaks as a production put on by Borderline. So to date, this petition has just under 1,000 people signed. We have some copies for you as well with my contact info below if you have questions or any follow-up conversations. And so really I'm here today to ask that in the next few weeks that you work with us to bring Borderline's Oak Heart back to the people of Thousand Oaks. So again, my name is Molly Mauer and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Molly. Appreciate your information. Janet Wall. Say again. Okay. Is that okay, Jim?
Yep.
Okay, that concludes our speakers. We're now moving on to item 5, approval of agenda. I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve. Oop. Go ahead. I move approval of the agenda. I'll second it.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second to approve our agenda, item 5. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, abstentions, hearing none, that motion will pass. Moving on to item 6, consent calendar A and B. A, approval of the minutes of December 7th, 2023 regular board meeting, and B, approval of warrants account payable registered $1,540,866 and a payroll of $1,041,500. Any comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 6.
Excuse me, we do need to take action on that motion.
Yeah,
We have a
have to
motion and a
approve.
second, but we
So we have to
need to
say-
vote on it.
I haven't got to the point of,
Oh.
I'm asking for comments or questions.
Okay,
Additional. No further comments or questions? I have a motion and approval and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, hearing none, that motion will pass. We're moving on to item 7, deferred matters. We have no deferred matters this evening. Moving on to item 8, new items. 8A, Thousand Oaks Rotary Club Choi Cook-Off and Craft Brew Festival 2024, annual agreement and permit conditions, Conejo Creek Park. Staff, please.
Thank you, Chair Lang and members of the board. We're here tonight to make a recommendation to continue the permit for an agreement with Thousand Oaks Rotary Club with the chili cook-off.
And Andrew, just for the record, I'm gonna
sorry.
interrupt. And although she didn't announce it, Director Buss did step out of the room as she has been historically the chair and remains the chair of the Thousand Oaks Rotary Chili Cook-Off. So she is going to be recusing herself and abstaining from this item. She's left the room, and we'll invite her back in when this item's over.
Thank you. And so we have two recommendations tonight. One is to determine that the event is categorically exempt from CEQA. This falls under a class 23 category exemption, and it's historically this park facility has been utilized for large events such as Chili Cook-Off, such as Conejo Valley Days, as well as Persian New Year, Wild Oaks, formerly Oak and other events that are of similar size and scale and use for community-wide events. And then the other item would be to execute the agreement with the Rotary Club. Agreement is very similar to last year. The event actually is on Sunday, May 5th this year. And the only major, fairly minor item that was changed was they weren't looking to utilize additional parking at Conejo Creek West. They would park in the empty lot as well as the equestrian parking lot in years past. And so we're not looking to utilize that with the event. Last year, the event did raise $90,000 for local nonprofits and charity use. So that's great. As well as it's been a very successful event over the years and the community enjoys it. So that's staff's recommendation. And we do have Mr. Nelson Buss here if he wants to say a few words about their event.
Not as eloquent as my sister, but I'll do my best. This year we'll be doing it at Cinco de Mayo from 11 to 5. That's pretty much the format we've had for like the last decade. We are anticipating roughly the same attendance that we've had year over year, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 6,000 people. We get them in and out in a reasonably orderly fashion. Parking doesn't seem to be an issue. We have a great crowd. We're very excited about the amount of money we're able to generate for the community. And every dollar we raise goes back to this community for that. So I really appreciate you guys supporting us and pulling this off every year. I know that Mike O'Byrne would be proud to know it still exists. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. Okay. Any comments or questions from staff? Additional comments or questions from staff? Okay, board members, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a technical question for Mr. Mooney on make sure I got the right exhibit number here. I think exhibit 1. Oh, I'm sorry, exhibit 2 goes through the agreement. I noticed that there is no item 16 listed. It goes from 15 to 17. I want to make sure that we weren't missing something, or is that just a enumeration?
Just a typo.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Just want to make sure it wasn't something there. And then you did mention in your oral presentation that we have a number of large events there, but do you typically make note that an event like this is part of that within your report? Since I know we've traditionally had a limited number of these events, and to how many occur within the year, so we can kind of take inventory, so to speak.
Sure. So last year, historically, we've had 3 events at that park site. Last year, we went up to 4 events. One of which was the Borderline annual Memorial Day event out in November at North. And so part of this report is every year we come back to the board for this approval, where this report isn't saying how many events the board has already set. There can be 4 events, and those are typically 4 nonprofit community-based events at the greater district-wide park site of Conejo Creek Complex. So, but as far as this report, it's solely for just the chili cook-off And that's what's with the recommendation tonight.
Hear you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other board member? Yes. Director Huffer.
This is probably a question for Nelson or maybe Marissa later could provide the information. I'm just curious, you mentioned that the event was very successful and everything I saw, it looked like it was very successful. Just curious, what did the event net for our local charities?
Not, just over $90,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Cuthbert.
So, did you say that you were going to be using the equestrian center for parking, or are you just going to be using Conejo Creek South, the soccer fields?
My understanding is we're no longer use the equestrian side.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a rental at Conejo Creek North for setup, Conejo Creek North for the day of the event, and then they have parking at South for the day of the event. That's
So do
And
you
we'd like
think
to
that will
encourage
be enough?
everybody to take alternative transportation if possible.
The only reason I'm questioning, because I remember one year it was extraordinarily crowded even to get off the freeway.
First
And
year
it
after the
was
pandemic.
really difficult to fit all of the cars at Conejo Creek South. And then it seemed that when you started using Conejo Creek West up there, that the parking wasn't so drastic. So why are we making the change?
I think that we don't have quite, I mean, that one year was an extraordinary year, and it was because I think people have been cooped up for 2 years. I best count, think that we may have in the neighborhood of about 9,000 people there, which is about 2,000 more than we had even last year.
Okay,
So
so,
I don't think we're gonna have that level of traffic again.
okay, I was
unless,
just
God
wondering, because
forbid,
that
we
would
have another
be
Pandemic.
something to be avoided, obviously.
Yeah,
So-
we like being successful. We don't want to be that successful. We are an all volunteer organization. And so everybody works very hard, but we're not getting paid for this. So we're not trying to outgrow our footprint.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other board member comments, questions? Nelson, you did mention, and we knew it's on the 5th of May, Cinco de Mayo. Do you do anything special in recognition of that in conjunction with the Choi Cook-Off or?
I may try to get some Mexican beers into the beer garden. We'll see how that goes. But in particular, I think that we've coincided with that date a number of times. And so just the fact that we are making chili, which is kind of a traditional Southwestern dish, and kind of from that area, I think we already have that flavor kind of built into the event itself. So
Okay. Thank you.
good.
Okay, any further board member comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Director Huffer,
Excuse me, I'd like to move approval of staff recommendation 1, categorizing as exempt from CEQA, and 2, authorizing the general manager to execute the agreement.
thank you. Have a second, please.
I'll make a second.
Thank you, Director Cusworth. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, hearing none, that motion will pass. Okay, we're gonna look forward to another big Chili Cook-Off Day. We're now moving on to item 8, B, Conejo Valley Days, 2024 Annual Agreement and Permit Condition, Conejo Creek Park. Staff, please.
Thank you, Chair Lang, members of the board. Again, this is one of the major events, large events at the Conejo Creek Complex. This would be very similar to the chili cook-off, where we would determine this exempt from CEQA under the same class. And again, just history, the Conejo Valley Days has been on the property for many years, as well as other events such as chili cook-off and the concerts and Persian New Year as such. As well as we have an agreement as an attachment with the report. This is very similar to past years. Want to reiterate, it's still in the parking lot. There's no conflict with any sports use. It's during refurbishment. So it's actually a really good time for the parking lot to be utilized for this event versus being taking up field time or having any other kind of overlap with other events and such. One change we do have as part of the permit, again, it's the events in the parking lot, but we do have a rental of the community room as well as the shade structure at the community room in the center of the facility. We do have that as an additional fee for payment of the rental of the permit. The entire event will be 11 days. However, they will be there from 3 days prior to the event and 2 days after the event. So there'll be a total of 16 days if I'm doing my math right. And so again, very similar agreement to years past. We made a little minor tweak with the rental and the fee based on that. But with that, I'm available for questions. I know Frank Acree is here and he can say a few words about the event.
Mr. Acree?
Thank you. Happy holidays. Good to see everybody. I want to start off by saying working with Andrew's been great. I've been doing this for a long time. Andrew and I work really well together. He was very easy to work with through all the lines. We went through everything completely because we really wanted to get it right now that we're going to have a permanent location in the parking lot. You know, I enjoy the grass, but we can make lemonade out of lemons no matter what. We just need to know what we're doing. And we worked through couple of conversations, and I think we got to a really great place. I'm really happy with the way it went. I'm happy with the way we communicate. I think you got a good one. So that's good. We're making a lot of decisions in Conejo Valley Days now as far as focus. We're really going to focus on foster kids. We're really going to focus on special needs kids. Zonta, who normally does special needs in our community, is really struggling. Their staff is small, they're aging out. I'm dealing with more regional people now than city people. So I'm trying to bring more funds into those nonprofits from different places so that they can actually stay operating. We're not doing foster kids from Los Angeles. Now we're doing foster children from Ventura County. So that's a good move. I like the way Conejo Valley Days handles the kids. It's a big job. It's kind of scary because the world's kind of gnarly. We're not advertising outside of our community. We're not having any bands that bring people from Los Angeles or anything else. It's all local entertainment. This year, our stage is going to be called the Garage Band Stage. We actually have a garage door that's going to go up and down on the front of it. So we're going to have some kids bands. We're going to have some karaoke for the kids. I'm going to stay away from the big bands like Foo Fighters and bands like that. They bring an element that isn't really Conejo Valley Days. And I think that the way everything's working, we just have to focus on our community and our kids. And that's what I see CVD doing. Chili Cook-Off is adults, wonderful, amazing. The concerts are great. I just want to focus on the kids. We don't raise a lot of money because kids don't spend a lot of money. They don't drink, they don't do beer, so we don't have a lot of money to give back. But we do stand on our own 2 feet, and we provide something for the children in our community that nobody else can do, which is a contained, secure carnival, not like Ventura or going to downtown or anything. So I like that. Happy with the fees, happy with everything. The condition of the tarmac is great. We get along well with Randy and Craig at the baseball field. The other entrance coming in the other way works great. But while we're setting up, if people want access, we're always happy to give them access to the baseball field. Same with soccer. If they show up to kick the ball, fine. They can park there as long as we don't need it. And if there's some kind of thing that comes up, Andrew and I are just going to talk about it and make sure it works. If if there's a special soccer thing or you guys have something else going on there, I just need to know about it so we can carve out a space for you. The school district now charges money for that parking lot that's in there. We groom it, we take care of it, we do all that bit. We talked about fire retardants, which and what kind of retardant we're going to put down there because it's in a hot day. And sometimes even if we put down water, there's an aerosol that comes up from anything that you put down and people get sick sitting in their cars. So that was the only thing that I'm really think we have to monitor. Everything else is easy. Kids love it. We love it. We do have a new flyer that we're sending out to all the high schools about dropping kids off. In the last 3 years, we haven't even gotten close to filling up the school parking lot. So we don't have any parking problems because it's mostly drop off and pick up. Sheriff's Department's been great. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you about it. I think we have a great model, though, for going for the future, for sustaining an event that really doesn't have a real possibility of funding by selling alcohol and doing those kinds of things because it's a kids event. But I think we're good.
Thank you, Mr. Akery. Any board members have questions? Yes, Director Cusworth.
So did you say you're going to be using the school parking lot also? That's that kind of empty school part between the fields and,
Yes,
okay,
it's a rental.
okay.
And we're working through the nonprofit, how good is it to the community? And I'm working with Victor on that. And we'll see. You know, there's some contention there. I think we're doing a great service for all the schools and all the kids in town, and we deserve a break on that. But we'll see. But yeah.
Okay. You're a very positive person. And
absolutely.
I enjoy talking with you. So,
Thanks, Nell.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think it's really my love of the kids and gratefulness to be here. I mean, this year I had 2 strokes and got bit by a rattlesnake. So every day is a good day. Right? Thank you.
Director Huffer.
Just a couple of quick questions and a comment. The carnival itself is running for 11 days this year.
So we run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then 2 days we're closed. I've asked the inspectors to come back out and inspect the rides and everything in the interim, like on a Monday that we're closed. Then we'll open again on Wednesday. And we'll run through till Sunday. We're closed, I think, at 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Okay, but this is more days than last year.
No, it's exactly the same. I think we're actually closed one more day. I think we were only closed 1 day last year, 2 days this year.
Okay, and what kind of business do you get during the week? You know, other than Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So it's a nice slow trickle. Sometimes it looks empty, but it's pretty spread out. And I like the fact that we don't get a big mad rush at one time, that it's very consistent and it moves along, saves on the parking, security's good. We can watch all the kids closely. During the week, we'll get 1,000 kids, you know, in a day. It depends on how many mentors we have with like special kids and foster kids, because we do mix them too. So we'd have a special kids day on Friday from like 10 to 2, and we have a foster kids day the following week on Friday from 10 to 2. But special kids and foster kids are welcome all during the week, and they have to bring a mentor with them. We don't charge for any of that. And it could be 600 kids over the course of 2 weeks. So.
Okay, I love what you're doing, you know, for the kids in our community. I like that you're keeping it local. I think that's great.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah.
I don't recall, Andrew, whether you said we are charging for use of the community room, but they did use it last year, correct? Just we didn't charge separately for it.
Not that I was aware of. They might have used it, but it wasn't included in our agreement, and that was part of the conversation that Frank and I had, was to memorialize it in the agreement and to make sure that it was included if it was something that was offered as part of prior years. So,
you know, we always used it for medical. So we had that room in the out back in case somebody became overwhelmed.
Okay, the reason I bring that up, and by the way, I'm glad you included in this the fencing so that they can use the picnic area, but they can't get into the grass. Just I happen to be involved with both AYSO soccer and with the tax program, both of which use the community room. And I know after last year's Conejo Valley Days, there was a little bit of additional cleanup that needed to be done after.
Yes.
And I would like to make sure that in addition to the nice job that you do in the parking lot, that you make sure that the community room is cleaned up as well.
Yeah. And I think we're amenable to the new fees and stuff. There is a lot of work that goes into it afterwards, and Sean out there and the staff out there, they work hard to clean it up. No matter how much we clean it, you can still clean more. So
All right.
it's good. And also, I'm very thankful for the ad hoc meeting that we had that you guys called to bring us all together to work through things. It was really helpful. So thank you.
Good. As I said, I love what you're doing with the local kids. That's great. I made the comment last year and I'll make it again this year. I'm not wildly enthusiastic about the park district basically renting out for a carnival, but it's been pointed out to me that the parking lot's not being used for anything else anyway. So it's sort of a win-win. It's a win for the district in getting a little bit of extra revenue, but more importantly, it's a win for the community and serving the kids. So I'm not wild about a carnival. I am going to support this. So
Great. Thank you, Chuck.
And yes, Director Buss.
Hi, I
Hi.
just want to say thank you so much for putting this on. My daughter is now at the age of 12, and I just this Christmas break have been dropping her off at the mall with her girlfriends. And I remember being a kid and walking down to the carnival, to the Conejo Valley Days, and being there with my friends. And I know this year I will be dropping my daughter off there and picking her up. And so I appreciate you providing this for the middle school to high schoolers that don't have a lot to do out here. So I think it's great. And I really love the focus on the special needs kids and the foster kids. I am a little sad about the Foo Fighters, though, I'm not going to lie. But thank you.
We can go see them separately.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, Mr. Mooney, just had a question with the rental. I know recently we had a process where we're kind of reviewing the reservation system and what parts of parks could be used. I know with Conejo Creek Park, we are kind of dividing up the various areas there as parcels that could be parts that could be rented. Is this also part of that? So in other words, this 825 fee, was that part of that process where we decided, hey, if somebody wants to rent the parking lot, this is the fee it's going to be, or is this just like a one-time effort?
Typically a parking lot at South would be a one-time effort. We have, and Rochelle can add to that, we have in the past rented it to other more for-profit kind of model. However, since this is a long-standing community event and a nonprofit, the rates are it's set differently because of it's set at a nonprofit rate for the special event. So, but however, yes, we could rent our parking lot to another vendor or another nonprofit, possibly, obviously taking that in front of the board and such, depending on the scale of the event.
Is there a fee for this parking lot in the fee schedule specifically?
No.
No, okay. And is there one for the entire Conejo Creek South? Or is this just done by agreement?
This is done by agreement. Yeah. So
Okay.
this is unique, just like Chili Cook-Off, just like Wild Oaks or Oak Heart in past years. It's a special event permit agreement.
Okay, that's what I was trying to determine because I wasn't aware of any routine rentals for parking lots, let alone this individual parking lot. I just want to make sure that that's how it was handled, just on I guess an event by event basis then.
Sure. Yeah. And typically it's anything, there's permits that can go up to 1,000 that happen in the park, right? And so it's happening in the parking lot like we've done in past years. Forgetting the vendor's name, but it's like a food truck venue.
We just did it. Last year was our first year that we did it. I think it's called 805.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and it's just food and stuff, and we rented it to them, the parking lot, like Andrew's saying, it's 1,000 people or less we'll rent stuff to, and I believe the way we did it, and I believe that we documented it, is for the parking lot, we took like how much space they were gonna use based off how many soccer fields there were, and we charged like how much,
Okay.
like a soccer field, but for the parking lot.
Okay. All right.
Because those are the fees that we have that are approved.
Okay. And Mr. Acree Frank, to you, I'm just looking at the yellow boundary of the parking lot. It says the use area. How much of that area is actually, the carnival or the rides, and how much of that is parking or other uses? Yeah.
So if you look
just
at
a
the-
general percentage.
In this map, if you look at where it says use area,
Yes.
we start right about there and run it all the way down to the baseball, and that's all carnival entranceway. And then we'll use the building for medical. It's parking from there all the way out to the yellow here. And then we'll fill up on a weekend, probably half of the school parking lot.
Is that the gravel portion? or the-
Yes,
Okay. Okay. So in other words, you're saying that basically it has been suiting your needs then?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. That's what
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, and the entranceway this year is, gonna throw this in here. So we hired Red Rasmussen, who builds billboards and stuff for Knott's Berry Farm. So we're gonna make a maze where you go in this year. So when you go in, you go down a Western Street that's like this long, and then there's like a buckboard with a medicine guy at the end. Then you make a left, and then you come back the same way, another like passageway, but it's all Western. And the idea is, since we're gonna be on the pavement, we got up our game. You know, one of Chuck's comments was, why are we doing this? Frank, tell me why we're doing this if it's getting smaller and smaller, or what's the charm? So we worked on the charm. So now people are going to feel like they got their money by the time they actually see the event, because they're going to go through a whole thing with actors and billboards and props and stuff by the time they get in there. And we're going to extend that same part of that to the chili cook-off and to, whoever does the concerts also. Because the CBD props and everything, they're for everybody, they're Western props. But that's going to be cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Don't
right.
tell anybody.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Mr. Hickory, you mentioned local. Does that include, when your PR, does that include Moore Park, Simi Valley also?
Moore Park, we're not going too deep into Simi for sure, because they kind of have their own thing that they're trying to resurrect. They also have a carnival out there now that happens. And then we want to be safe and we want to be careful. I'd rather, have it be a little smaller, but have the kids be safe, and the kids that go to our schools that are in the Conejo Valley. I don't really know if Simi's the Conejo Valley. Not sure. I think Agora is, but I think it's Agora to Moore Park right there at, Underwood Farms, kind of the cutoff for me. So we won't advertise. We won't turn anybody away, but I don't think we're going to be advertising in those schools.
You're not, that was going to be my next question. How, local schools, you're advertising?
Yeah, so we donate money to all the ASB boards. And mainly it's so that they can pay for the adverts that happen inside their the school. So to let everybody know that where the pickup drop off is, that they can afford all the, the flyers and all the read and ride program that we provide for all the kids. So if they read 3 books, they get in free and they get free ride tickets. So that's 6th grade down. And then the 7th and 8th graders, they have to provide so much community service. If they can do that, again, they're in free and they ride for free. We have like a farm workers day for all the people who work in agriculture, all those kids. So it's a lot of paperwork and it's a lot of telling everybody about it. So I think we're going to do a better job this year of communicating that. Facebook's been working out really good, but you got to be careful talking to kids on Facebook that are in school systems. It's touchy, so it's got to go through the ASB.
Quite an undertaking, a lot of different parts of the puzzle and so forth. And I know if it's going to be successful, you're the man
I'm happy.
behind it to make it successful.
I'm happy we can do this, right?
Okay, sounds good. Board members, any additional comment or questions for Mr. Acree or our staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Director Nichols.
I'll be happy to make a motion that we determine the Conejo Valley Days as categorically exempt from CEQA, and also authorize the general manager to execute the agreement for Conejo Valley Days.
Thank you. We have a second. Thank you, Director Buss. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstentions, Hearing none, that motion will pass. We're moving on to item,
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome, Mr. Akery.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 8.
Chair,
Yes.
thank me. Just, I think for point of order for our friends here from Borderline and Oakheart, just, if you haven't, been at a lot of local government meetings, just so you know, when you provide the input at the beginning during public comment, the board can't do anything or act on that. That's something, you know, that we have to have on agendized and on the agenda. So you're more than welcome to stay, but don't stay anticipating some decision might happen for you tonight. Just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Just okay. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Again, you're welcome to stay, but I didn't know if you were just, waiting for something.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, for that. Okay, we're now on to item 8C, contract amendment number 1 with RRM Design Group in the amount of $30,000 for additional professional services for Conejo Recreation and Park District Master Plan update. Staff, please.
Thank you, Chair Lang, members of the board. If you remember all the way back in July of 2021, we were under contract with RM Design Group, working with the city on the general plan. So as the general plan has been moving along, and I know it's been I believe a 4-year process, since July 21, staff as well as RM has been working closely with the city. And so we've been chipping away at our master plan because like kind of my motto is we give parks to people, and as the city gets more people, we need more parks, and we need to make sure we're putting parks in locations, and that's our master plan, right? So we've been working very closely with the RM team, and we've met again over the years with city staff, milestones with the general plan. We've done during the general plan presentations. I've done presentations as part of the park element, has worked through the open space element as well. And then also just reviewed and discussed general plan environmental impact report comments. And you guys have been brought up to speed as those have been happening the past few years. And so now we're at a point where we have a general plan, we have a land use map is the most important thing. And so we are taking a look at where parks need to be for the future, where are they now, and where are they going, right? And so the goal would be this extension, this amendment of 30,000 would be able to finalize our draft master plan, be able to bring the master plan to the board for comment, and then we would be able to finalize the master plan based on this design service amendment. And then as far as I just want to be clear with the cost. So originally our contract was $60,000 with them. And this is where it gets kind of tricky budgeting wise, because it rolls over from multiple fiscal years. So basically in total, the services would be $90,000 with RM. The contract that was approved in July 21 is $60,000. We're asking for another $30,000 to finish the project, to finish the master plan draft and to complete the master plan at a later date. And so really the goal would be is to be able to continue to work with RM timeline. We're thinking probably about the next 6 months or so. I would like to hit it before the summer break to be able to bring back a draft to the board if timing works out with the group, to be able to do that, to bring for comments, if not sooner. And then we would be able to bring the master plan back for approval. So this would be a comprehensive update based on land use and based on population changes that we've seen since the last update. The last major update was 2011, but then the last because of the 2010 census, but we have updated over time. However, the data, we don't have the population data, the land use update to the map for the city. So this would be taking all of that into consideration. The master plan will be kind of getting refreshed, if you will, to make it a little bit more readable document, a little bit more exhibits, a little bit more kind of walking someone through the process of what is a park master plan. So that's what we've been working closely with the RM folks with. And there, the chart shows kind of fiscal year budget. We have, as of this year, we started with 39,000 since we spent 20,000 and change prior fiscal year. And then so we would be looking to spend an additional $69,300 with RM. And staff feels confident. We might come in under that, but staff feels confident that we should be able to complete the project, complete the master plan update with this service amendment. So with that, I am available for questions unless Mr. Friedel wants to add anything to that.
Nope, that was pretty comprehensive.
Okay, board members, any comments or questions? Director Buss?
So this will provide us with a draft, and then after that, will there be more costs to it once we have feedback for the draft, I'm assuming?
No. Yeah, so
this will-
this includes draft, updating comments and providing a final product.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Director Nichols.
Oh, over there.
Okay,
It's
Director
okay. I
Cusworth.
could have waited.
Oh.
Is this the company that drafted the master plan probably, what was it, about 13 years ago?
No.
Okay.
Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With what has been completed prior to this amendment, what were the deliverables for that section? And what, excuse me, and when were those received?
Sure. So I kind of did a little bullet point in the report just to kind of like walk the group through it. But I touched on a little bit in my report, my verbal report is as far as deliverables, one of the biggest items was the comments and preparing the letters to the city and walking through the policies and the verbiage that we provided to the city. So that's something that's been incorporated into the general plan. And that includes park as well as open space chapters. We made comments on that. We helped coordinate information to the city as far as data and city's team did their own maps and such like that, but we gave them the existing data that we had as well as extracted that data to be able to update their master plan since they lean on the park district for the park element, right? And so with that, it's those documents that's probably the biggest deliverable is to be able to update and take a look at what the city put together because we are a piece of that. In that chapter, but then also I think I mentioned the letters we had the letters during the general plan process as well as the environmental impact report letters that those are the deliverable items that we discussed with our design team and we're able to put that together. And then we have been working, we don't necessarily have like a deliverable to put in front of the board, but we have working deliverables that staff has been reviewing and working with. RM like draft new maps basically that show where the parks are, where do we need more parks, where it's the current land use around certain parks. So we have like kind of in progress deliverables, but we don't necessarily have a document to hand over and say, hey, this is where we're at with the project. So, and we felt it was best versus to kind of continue on the next month or two, working with RM, get to the end of our current $60,000 contract, and then come back and ask for additional monies to be able to work a little bit more linearly, just because of it's been a long process with the master. Sorry, I keep saying master plan, the city's general plan. So then that way we can, in the next hopefully 6 to 8 months, be able to get through our master plan update process versus I don't want to say delays, but it was a long process for the city because it was such a huge undertaking that the general plan has. And so now that we have the information we need, we want to be able to kind of just continue to move through the process with our consultant team.
Okay, and then once the draft master plan has been presented, comments back and forth, board reviews it, and now becomes the final master plan, does that require city council approval to be part of the recreation element for the general plan?
No, so this would be fully on CRPD board of directors. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our guiding document. However, we do look to their land use plan and their policies to be able to implement our master plan.
Okay, but I believe those documents for the city refer to the Park
Correct.
District Master Plan, but doesn't require their approval.
Correct.
Okay, all right, and then one last thing. I know we've talked about this, but I didn't know if that was part of this effort to try and address the challenges of providing park land or smaller parks or parklets, whatever we call, within the Teal Boulevard specific plan area. Will that be incorporated and woven within the master plan?
Correct. Yeah, that's some item that we've been discussing. Again, kind of the 500 Teal Boulevard that we just that the board approved back in November. It's the factor of, hey, we have different park structure than we did in 2011, right? We have different population that we had in 2011, different housing units. And so the goal would be is to take that, and there might be a subset, we're not there yet, but there might be a subsection of whether it's a parklet, a micro park, mini park, whatever we end up working through. But then we would be taking a look at that, as well as, you know, private park that's publicly available. That's going to be kind of like a subsection. And then that in time, just like, hey, we built Page Lane, we built Sapway Trails, then we got another private park or private public partnership park, right? So then we'll be able to update the master plan kind of as we go, and as the district evolves, the master plan evolves.
Okay. All right, yeah, I just want to make sure that that wasn't skipped over, which I know it's been on our radar. I just didn't know if it was part of this process.
And that's really been always the intent, is to kind of take a look at where we're going. And we knew, just because of how real estate is, opportunities, cost, but then size of parcels and such. So.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Yes, Director Huffer.
Just to confirm, you said that the target is to have the draft plan to us by the end of the year,
Correct. End of
December of 24.
Yeah. Well, my goal is well before that.
Okay.
Yeah. My goal would be, hopefully in the next 5 to 6 months, we come back here and have a draft presentation, whether RRM comes or myself and Rebecca present it to the board. And then that would be kind of open for comments and review. And then we would take those comments and review, come back in the next few months and be able to finalize it, hopefully early fall. I would hope for, or late summer.
Okay. And so this is task 6. And I know you gave us a link to the original master plan, but is this the final task covered by this
Correct.
contract or this agreement?
Correct. Yeah. So this would be the final task within what RM would need to complete to finish the master plan.
Okay. And it's sort of a follow-on to Director Nichols' question. The city doesn't need to approve this, but they do refer to it. Is there some place, at least on their online version of their general plan, where they would or could link to our master plan, so that if someone is so inclined, the recreation element, and they can then go to our master plan?
Sure. And we can talk to city planning staff about how they do that. I know in the digital age, it's a little bit different than printed paper document that's sitting at City Hall or the halls of CRPD. But yeah, we can work with city staff to make sure that when this does get updated, that we have a direct link and how that works.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Any further comments or questions by the board members come to mind? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Director Lang, I'd like to move that we approve staff recommendations. 1, to appropriate 30,000 from the assessment district, and 2, to authorize the general manager to enter into amendment number 1 with RRM.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
Thank you, Director Cusworth. Any other comments or questions come to mind? If not, all in favor of 1 and 2, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, hearing none, that motion will pass. And thank you, Andrew, for all the work that you've put into that. And we're moving on to item 8D, investment policy update. Staff, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lang and members of the board. The staff member, our management services administrator, that's going to be presenting this is actually online. She is hopefully going to appear. She's being a really good sport. She is not feeling well. She intended to be at the meeting, but when we heard her talk, we all agreed it'd be better if she weren't here.
Hi. Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening. Sorry I'm not there, but yeah, probably best that I'm not there. And I'm going to try to keep this brief to avoid a coughing spell, but feel free to interrupt me with any questions you might have. So we review the investment policy annually, and basically it's a summary that we invest in compliance with the California Government Code and that we identify the two pools that we use. Now, because CRPD serves as the Chief Finance Officer for MRCA, MRCA uses this investment policy for their investments. More recently, MRCA has gotten a lot of advanced funds that are required to be held separately, excuse me, separately from the other pooled funds that they have. And the two pools identified in our investment policy, we're not able to accommodate that. And so last year we came and we amended the policy to exempt funds that are in those types of agreements that require them to be segregated to be exempt from this policy and to find another provider for the MRCA for those purposes. So after that, I met with MRCA staff and we did a big process to identify some providers that could provide that type of investment services for those MRCA funds. I go into detail in the staff report, but we identified 3 different entities that they're public agency pools. They only do investments complying with the government code, so they don't do any type of investments that wouldn't be allowed by this policy. They have experience with special districts, and they can do that sub-accounting and separate accounts that are required by those MRCA agreements. We then met with the Finance and Audit Committee and selected CalTrust. I go into the reasons in the staff report, but happy to discuss further if you like. And then we looked at, because they're such a easy tool for us to use, and we've had such great success with them on the MRCA side, and they've been outperforming both Leif and Ventura. We're recommending that the changes in this investment policy add CalTrust as the list to the list of pools that CRPD is able to use. It's one of those examples where CRPD usually finds good stuff and MRCA adopts it, but in this case, MRCA found the good stuff and CRPD is hopefully going to adopt that. So with that, I'm available for any questions, and I do apologize for my voice.
Thanks, Melissa. And you don't have to apologize. We know that the bug's going around. Okay, any other comments from staff? If not, questions by board members. Director Nichols.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for the review. Thank you for the report. And you're right, the details are there, and I appreciate that. I was having a little difficulty in understanding the timeline and process, and you touched on it briefly, but maybe you could expand on that as much as your health will allow. But you're talking about how the park district policy kind of oversees both agencies, and that MRCA couldn't move forward with the policy as it was approved because it didn't allow for the sub-accounting and so forth. And then this is before us tonight to change that policy. However, MRCA has already moved forward and we haven't approved the policy. So I'm trying to, figure out which is the cart and which is the horse here.
Right. So actually last November was the time that you did the amendment that allowed MRCA to do the investments that are required to be separate based on those agreements. So you already made the change for MRCA to do this type of investment. Now this is the change to say that CRPD can use it for not just segregated accounts, but for their general investment purposes. So the first change last November allowed MRCA to do the investments with CalTrust because they were exempt from this policy because they were subject to segregated rules in a separate agreement. And then this is a change that would allow CRPD to use it for their normal investing processes, their day-to-day cash.
Okay, so it's just expanding the sphere then of how you can invest all resources, not just those segregated ones.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Director Nichols. Yes, Director Huffer.
You've probably told us this before, Melissa, but now that, assuming that we approve this policy, that will give the district 3 investment choices for our day-to-day cash. Is there any anticipation as to, I mean, right now, I believe most of our cash is held at the Ventura County pool as opposed to the state pool.
Correct.
Is there any anticipation as to whether we'll use this new investment vehicle for a little bit, a lot, or most of our day-to-day funds?
So I'm resistant to dive full into a new thing, but they've been so good with MRCA that I would probably start moving some of the funds that we have long-term plans for. So some of our reserves, where I could have them do the sub-accounting on a reserve level for us, I'll probably start using it for those purposes where they could get some higher returns as well and help with our capital plans in future.
Okay, but there's nothing in our current or proposed investment policy that requires a minimum amount or maximum amount in any one of these 3 investment choices. We could theoretically be 100% in one of the 3.
Correct. I tend to want to be more diversified, but our policy basically just says that 98% of our funds need to be invested. And that's the only rule that we have on how much.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And you can't be that sick if you're sitting there in that nice outdoor space there, so
Yeah, it's making me feel better.
good.
Okay, thank you, Director Huffer. Any other comments or questions from board members? If not, I'd entertain a motion on the adoption of the district's update investment policy.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Director Buss.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Huffer. Any other comments, or questions come to mind? If not, all in favor of item D, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, sharing none. That motion will pass. We're moving on to item
Get
E.
better, Melissa.
Thank you.
Item E, confirmation of board appointments and assignments. As indicated in a email I sent to the board members, appreciate if you would have gone over this, give it some thought and so forth, and let us know as to what your choices are as to various committees and appointments and assignments. We're going to start off. There's some. Well, let me first ask the general manager, is there any comments that you'd like?
Yeah, this is really largely your bailiwick as board members trying to divvy up your workload with the different committees and ad hoc committees, et cetera. The one thing I would note is that staff felt that the ad hoc refunds, deposits, and rental fees committee, they did meet, that we did have the sports summit. We talked to the groups and we adjusted the fees accordingly, I think last spring. And so we don't really feel like that ad hoc committee needs to stick around. So our recommendation as staff would just be that that particular committee can cease. But after that, it's really up to the board members. You'll remember we did a much more robust review of this last year, and that was because we had a brand new board member, right? Susan Holt had retired, Marissa Buss was elected, so we kind of scrambled the eggs a little bit more. But kind of by tradition, there is some degree of expertise that, you know, board members get working in committees, and so we don't have any recommendations for changes, but that's for you guys to figure out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. As you see, we've got the fixed term appointments and none of those expire at this time. And the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency, Chuck Huffer and Doug Nichols will remain in those positions unless I hear different. The next are the various committees and ad hoc committees and standing committees. Are there any of those that you're currently assigned to that you would rather not serve on, and or is there others that you would like to? Yes, Director Cusworth.
Just one comment. I'm on the Chumash Museum liaison and also as the Historical Society Board liaison. I think it would be better if we just said I was the liaison for the Tri-Museums of Conejo Valley. Because I don't really go to any of the Chumash board meetings. I did, but it didn't seem necessary or helpful. So I'm in contact with Barbara. I do go to board meetings for the Historical Society, but I'm also very involved at McCray Ranch, and I do put together meetings for the 3 directors every year to meet, plus having some interaction between the boards, such as Robert Tejada will be speaking at the Stagecoach Inn Museum this year, and Joel McCray spoke last year, and so we're kind of trying to work together. So I think instead of saying that I'm on 2 things there, it would just be better to call that as the Tri-Museum liaison. Because there's only technically 1 board meeting that I'm going to, but I am working with all 3 museums. The other thing I would wonder is I don't know why we have to have a standing committee for the Ventura County Special Districts Association, as we all are very open to go to those meetings, and many of us do.
But we have
So-
to have some representation identified.
Okay, so it has to be identified.
Yeah,
Okay,
the fact that we are involved with it and are concerned
Okay.
with it.
so that's
Support
fine.
it.
Because it seems that we always do have people there, but that's fine if
No,
that
there has
is a
to be an
requirement.
individual
Okay,
identified.
not a problem.
In fact, when I first came on the board many years ago, I was the assistant to the appointee of the board. So
Okay,
that's kind of how,
I just had a question on that.
yeah.
I was also wondering, we always have minutes for the Global Senior Center Commission. And so we always have minutes on all of our meetings in all of our meetings, we have the minutes for their meetings. So it seems that we're wanting to keep the board knowing what's going on at the Global Senior Center Commission. Should we just have a board member going to those meetings so that we're keeping in touch with them, since we're getting their minutes? I mean, I would be very interested in doing that if that was something that we wanted. If that's not something that the commission wants, and it would just be better to continue getting their minutes, that's fine too. But I had a question about that. We don't get minutes for any other meetings. Like, well, why did that start, that we're getting minutes for them, but we don't have board representation there? Just a question.
So the Global Senior Center Commission's an actual 501c3 nonprofit. So it's an actual separate legal entity. So they do a little bit more in terms of formalities, in terms of how they operate and all that kind of stuff. So when they do their meetings, I believe they can conduct them as an open public meeting. And so anybody could attend their meeting. But they do have, they're kind of a unique animal in that they do have that 501c3 status. So they're just a little different. They're not our committee. They're an actual separate 501c3. But we get like sort of approval authority over their appointments, of which in the 20 years I've been here, nobody's ever rejected one of their members, right? So
I was
Yeah.
just wondering like what it was, so we just get their minutes just to kind of see what's sort of going on there with them. Okay, all righty. And then I had another question, which doesn't mean we would have to change anything, but we have different people on the ad hoc Conejo Creek Master Plan Review Committee and the ad hoc large community events policies and procedures, which those 2 things are very connected. Because all of the large community events are probably going to happen at the Conejo Creek area. So do we want to have at least one person the same on that? Because I know when I have talked with Mr. Friedel, sometimes I'm talking to him about the large community events, and he'll say, oh, aren't you on the Conejo Creek? And I'll say, well, no, I'm just on the large community events, but this is really affecting Conejo Creek very much if we're going to be doing large community events in that area, which is the only area that we could be doing large community events.
we wouldn't have to change that, but I'm just thinking are we missing some communication there by having 4 different people on this committee? Does anybody not want to be on one? I would be happy to be on both committees is what I guess I'm saying, because I'm highly interested in both of these things. But I don't want anybody to, say, well, I want to be on the committee too. I don't want to take over somebody's thing. But right now, I think that Mr. Friedel and I guess Mr. Mooney are on both of these committees, so they would be keeping us, in conjunction with what one committee is saying as regards to the other one. That was just my thing, because if the Conejo Creek Master Plan Committee has some definite plans that are going to conflict with our large community events, we need to be coordinating with that. Maybe it's not necessary, maybe it is. It was just something I thought.
If I could just
Director Huffer, please.
comment on this, because this is the ad hoc master plan committee is one that we just formed last year. And
Both are.
the rationale for forming that committee, technically, it's not the entire Conejo Creek complex that they're looking at the master plan. It's specifically for the equestrian community garden area, and its master plan. It has nothing to do with events that are going on there. It's
Unless there could be events going on there, is what I'm saying.
well, yeah, but I mean, it's really more focused than the large community events, which right now, all of them are at Conejo Creek South, but there's nothing saying that, or Conejo Creek, one of them's at North, but there's nothing saying that we couldn't have a large event someplace else. I mean, technically, our summer concerts are large events, but we don't need to, worry about those. But maybe once Conejo Community Park is completely redone, there may be some opportunity for large events there. So
I get
the
that,
large
what I'm
events
saying.
are not strictly for Conejo Creek.
No, but what I'm saying is what the area that they're looking at Conejo Creek could potentially in the future have large events. So that needs to be considered. That's all I'm saying. That's a lot
Can I
of
make a
land
comment?
over there that could be used, maybe not used for large events, but could be used for large
It-
events.
So being someone who
Wait.
runs, sorry,
General manager is going to make a comment.
I had my hand up before him and that's why he moved back. But go ahead.
Yeah, she did. I saw her hand up. I was, I guess what I was going to interject is probably what maybe Director Buss was going to say, but so we have user groups at a variety of our facilities, like our community partners. And so they sometimes approach us with ideas, and we have had ETI approach us with sort of a big idea. And so we have the ad hoc Conejo Creek Master Plan Review Committee there to kind of consider not only their proposal, but, kind of our park district's response to that. And as we have done with virtually every single park that we have, we end up running any kind of major change through a very robust community input process. So eventually, whatever ETI's ideas are combined with what, the board's ideas might be, will be vetted through the entire community. And in that vetting process, my experience is that really good ideas kind of keep bubbling up and eventually we're able to do them. So there has been a need for sort of event space and large event space. And I think that might be, one of the things that is part of that kind of idea that gets baked into this. But Director Buss and Director Nichols that are on that committee haven't yet seen anything from staff in terms of reacting to the proposals that we've received from ETI. So that's just going to be something that they'll have a chance to look at here in the very, very near future. Actually, do we have a date or no date?
It could be sometime this month, actually.
Yeah. So
Depending on their schedule.
we're really close to getting ready for them to have a meeting again. And, we'll go from there with their idea. But, there is, of course, there's sort of a connection because you can have large events at all sorts of different facilities, but for sure, Conejo Creek complex, all the different quadrants lend themselves to sort of, it's our central park. It's our big main gathering place. So that's for sure where large events occur. But this Conejo Creek master plan review is really right now focused specifically on Conejo Creek West with, if we're looking at West, we'll also consider how it affects the entire master plan. So
Yeah, just
I don't know if that was anywhere close to what you were going to say, but
No.
And
I'll be.
FYI, the general manager has a bigger perspective of a lot of things that we as directors might not know and how they interact. So that's why I would call on a general manager before a board member on a specific topic when we've got so many different aspects of what our topic is. So, okay, Director Buss.
So what I was going to say, as someone who has ran one of the large events for the last 5 years in this community, is that you don't have proper ingress and egress to that portion of the park. And so having me on that committee and not on the large community one, I do have that insight of it doesn't make sense to have that be a large community event place because you only have Flores, which is a single lane road. So that's where like we would never move the chili cook-off there. You wouldn't move Wild Oaks or anything like that. No matter what we did with that space, it just doesn't have the capacity on that road. So that's kind of my point, is that even though I'm not on the large community event one, since I ran one, I know I have a lot of insight for this portion of Conejo Creek. So there is some overlap on that.
I'm going to go back to Director Cusworth and your different committees and museums and so forth. I understand, I heard what you had to say, and I understand your involvement in all three museums, but if it wasn't for you and your involvement and another board member, would we still, in your mind, need a representative with the Shumash?
I guess what I'm saying is I think that if you had somebody, if I leave and you had a tri-museum person, then they would hopefully continue communicating with all three museums, because I communicate with McCray Ranch also. We have three museums and we don't need to have different people for a Shumash, a Stagecoach, and then a McCray. And McCray, I think the three museums should have one representative that is interacting with all three museums. Maybe they wouldn't be interacting to the level that I interact with them because that's a passion of mine. But whatever that job was, if we wanted to keep that as a permanent job, it would be better to have one person interacting with all three museums. That's all I'm saying. That we don't need separate people. I'm doing Shumash and Stagecoach, but you don't need a separate person for Shumash, for Stagecoach, and then not having McCray have any representation. Right now, there's nothing for McCray. He's got his own foundation. I'm very involved with McCray, so I'm doing that. But if somebody else was here, it'd be nice to have somebody interacting somewhat with McCray too, to say, hey, we've got these three museums. We need to be together. I brought them quite a bit together. I'd like to see the position say that it's for all three museums. That's all I'm saying. So that if this became a job after I left, that person would know we have three museums. You need to coordinate with all three. You don't have to be a volunteer at them like I am, but if somebody at one of the museums had a question that they wanted to talk to a board member about, that would be the person they would go to, so that they could be interacting with all three, instead of having perhaps three board members each interacting with the museums differently. It's just better to have one person interacting with all three. And I think that they're getting a very good feeling that we have three museums in the Conejo Valley and they all want to interact together. So why not just have one board member saying that they're the liaison for our three museums? That's the point I was making. I think that would be a better job title for that.
There's enough synergy between the three museums that one representative could coordinate all three rather than have
Yeah,
three.
it's not that difficult to coordinate all three, because like I said, I don't really go to the Chumash Indian Museum board meetings. It's only really one board meeting I'm going to, but it's still one person that's interacting with all three museums. So that, and interacting with the staff in all three museums. Like not as much Chumash, but I've gotten to know Juliet very well. And, Gavin very well, and the different people that are at the museums, they all know me, so that
I'm just saying it should be one person interacting with all three museums instead of having perhaps two separate people working with museums or even, three separate people working with museums. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, well, based on your involvement and past experience, I think you're a good person to make that comment. If we don't need another committee, just to have a committee, if one person can take care of all three, in my mind, and there is enough synergy and things going on, and it kind of makes sense. I'd be open to other board member comments. Yes, Director Nichols.
I actually think it's a very good idea, and just as we are doing tonight, every year we review the committee assignments and the needs for that. So it's not like once you make a decision, it's forever and ever.
Right.
We review this every year, and maybe even Director Cusworth in a year or two will make a recommendation that it doesn't continue. So this is a living and breathing process. So I think I'd certainly follow her recommendation. She's more inclined to have a better feel for that, and I would certainly support that.
I would agree.
And like I said, we'll review it again next year, just like we do with all of them.
Director
I would
Huffer.
agree. I think it makes sense to combine those three. And actually, if you just somehow refer to it as a standing committee for museums, because who knows, somewhere down the line, maybe a fourth museum will be added to the community. So that would be a little bit broader, just in case, to cover that eventuality. But I think it makes sense to have all three current museums covered.
I would agree.
One.
Staff.
Can we just call it museum liaison and then
So
we're good?
Yep.
All right, and so I will eliminate the separate, the Historic Society for Stagecoach and the Chumash Museum. I will eliminate those by reference and just create a committee that's called Museum Liaison, and that will be Director Cusworth, and you can liaise with any museum you want.
Potentially a new art museum. When we put that.
Not Los Angeles, but liaise with the
No, Conejo Valley Art Museum.
Okay. Director Nichols.
I would also like to follow the general manager's recommendation and disband the ad hoc refunds, deposits, and rental fees ad hoc committee. I think that committee has served its purpose.
Right, yeah,
And then I also have just a question for the board, and particularly those that are on the committee. The Ad hoc Art, Education, and History Committee, it's, as I look at ad hoc committees, it's usually just a short term for a specific purpose, and then it's disbanded. But it seems like that committee could have a long time purpose, and maybe that should be a standing committee and not an ad hoc committee.
you're talking about the property acquisition?
No, the Ad hoc Art, Education,
Oh,
and
excuse
History
me.
Committee. That's what I'm talking about. The next one I would like to about is the property acquisition, because to me, that too is also something that's long-term. It's not just a single purpose. I mean, if you're going to say, oh, we're looking at this property, let's create an ad hoc committee. Oh, we're looking at that property. That's, it's like, I think we should have also a standing committee for that. Now, if there's perhaps not enough for that to do, well, I'm also thinking of the Park Facility Naming Committee. Well, we don't have a whole lot of new parks that need naming, but it's still a standing committee. Maybe those two could get together and, do the, the acquisition and naming. I'm not sure, but again, it is an ongoing activity and not just something that pops up, here and there, as opposed to, like we're talking about the Quimby review. Well, yeah, that's just right now. We're looking at that right now. When we're through reviewing it, then that committee disbands. So that was my thoughts on those couple of committees. So open for discussion.
Appreciate
Mr.
your
Chair.
input.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Director Huffer.
I would support both of those suggestions because yes, property acquisition, there may not be much out there, but if we get an opportunity like the little park by the little piece of land next to the hospital, jump on that, whether it's small parcels or big parcels. So that is an ongoing, and I would agree that the art education history also is not just a one-time deal. It probably should be ongoing as well.
Yeah, and in reference to the property acquisition, you got to be ready to jump on it too. You know, you don't want to go through wait for another meeting to create another ad hoc committee, et cetera. So it makes sense. Do we feel that we've got enough information, or should the staff go back based on what they heard this evening and re-identify some of these committees?
Yeah, it would be no problem for me to bring these back as, add this to, I think unless there's other changes, I know exactly what I would do. There's now a museum liaison that would be generic and cover all three museums. We'd make ad hoc the Art, Education, and History Committee and the Property Acquisition Committee. Those two ad hocs would be just moved into the standing category, and we would treat them accordingly in terms of noticed meetings. And then we would eliminate the ad hoc refunds deposits committee. That would be it.
Sounds good. But based on all that we're hearing and maneuvering and changing, et cetera, and this is not an item that needs to be, passed tonight. This is something that we could postpone for our next meeting. And if you wouldn't mind, Jim, is to create a new format, and so we know about the committees, and then we'll have another opportunity to look at it and think about it too.
Cool.
How does that sound, board?
Good.
Okay. So we're going to postpone item excuse me, until next meeting. So with that, we're moving on to item 8F. Board of Directors norms, guidelines, and processes.
So the board norms, guidelines, and processes is something that we've committed to look at every year. It's kind of like, exercise or taking your medicine or something. We have zero recommended changes that from the last time the board looked at it. So just sort of for good order and organizational health, we asked the board to kind of look at it once a year, remind themselves of it. It's something we've committed to and how we operate, and it kind of holds our culture together. So no recommended changes from staff. Hopefully you kind of glanced through it again and reminded yourselves of how we operate. And with that, I leave it to you guys to discuss and or approve.
Okay. Yes, Director Kessworth.
I feel, as I've read through it, that we have maintained these norms. Has the staff seen any problems that we need to address, or that there have been any problems at all with our not maintaining these norms?
No, staff's comfortable.
Yes, Director Nichols.
Couple of technicalities to consider on item 2.1.3. On the last line, it says the issue shall be agendized and brought back to the full board of directors for resolution. So that would only be assuming if the board had seen it once before then. So I was
That's
thinking of
right.
just striking the term back, because it may or may not have been to them before.
Good point.
Okay, so the very last line of 2.1.3, the word back, we're going to eliminate that word.
That's my recommendation.
Okay.
And then secondly, on item 2.2, letter C, public comments shall be made only at the appointed time and from the podium provided. I would maybe suggest striking and from the podium provided and just leave it after appointed time, period, since we now have the opportunity for Zoom interaction or online, however you want to call it.
Staff's good with that?
Okay.
Those were my two observations and comments.
Good ones. Any other board member comments? Recommendations, information? Okay, if no further comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I believe, was this item or something else that we had a speaker card on?
Oh, that's right,
Next.
Janet.
The next one.
Getting close.
Next, next.
Okay. So, we've considered the various comments by your board member. Are there any other comments or questions associated with directors, norms, guidelines, and processes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the guideline.
Thank you, as modified.
Have they been modified?
Good. Any other, yes, second?
Second that.
Thank you, Director Nichols, Director Cusworth. Okay, any other comments or questions come to mind? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, hearing none, that motion will pass. Okay, we're now moving on to item 10, reports and announcements.
9A.
9A, excuse me, thank you. 2024 goals and objectives. This could be a big one.
Well, thank you, Chair Lang and members of the board. It's maybe a different one. I don't know how big it is per se, but it is a discussion item. There's no real action specifically that I'm looking for tonight. The reason this is in front of you is that historically we've used the entirety of the strategic plan to sort of measure our progress in any given year about like, how are we doing? Are we doing what we said we would do? And we kind of point to different, goals and objectives that are within the broader strategic plan to kind of say, hey, we've made progress in these areas, and that gets reflected traditionally at the year in review when I come back and say, hey, here's all the kind of the different big things that happened. And again, one of the things I want to be really careful of is that I don't discount or minimize all the very hard day in, day out work that the staff in the field do, the groundskeepers and the building maintenance folks and the fleet folks and the rangers and the rec staff in the field doing all the programming and the instructions and the events they do. So that's like kind of our baseline, all the good stuff we do year in and year out. And a lot of times what this board and what staff kind of focus on is, okay, what are we doing to kind of continue to evolve to serve the community? So it's something a little different. So with that, the list in front of you is something that I put together because, the city does its top 10 goals that they do every year, rather than just have 90 different goals that are identified in the strategic plan. I've kind of pulled out 14 things that are kind of exemplify things that are kind of coming up to our back burner, to our front burner, things that we're working toward. So this list of 14 things are things all, I think, within the existing strategic plan that you just approved in September. And I have extra copies if you don't have yours. So you'll see on page 125 of the staff report, there's the reference in parentheses at each of the goals is the strategic plan. SP stands for strategic plan. That's the reference to the strategic plan number, like where this sort of effort is coming from. So if you look at the list, there's 14 items there. I think 14, if that's I counted right. 14 items. These are all things that staff is, kind of gearing up to work on based on the strategic plan, based on the existing board direction, come through committees or the board itself, through our existing budget and or our master plan. So you kind of look at those guiding policy documents and staff's out there doing the operational work to sort of get things done. So this ends up being park heavy because they are the ones that do the new stuff. They like build the new buildings and add the new facilities. But there's a little bit of something here for everyone. So there's a little bit of management services, rec, and then a lot of park stuff. A lot of the park stuff is stuff you've already approved in the budget, for example, a capital plan in the budget. So these items are just kind of meant to highlight the big, I would call them the big things on my personal to-do list as GM. And the idea of this is to have the board look at it because I think it was Director Nichols, but all the board agreed too. It's, hey, when we do the general manager performance review, we want to kind of have a list or some sort of metrics to measure performance by. So are you doing the things that we kind of agreed that we should focus on? So I'm kind of throwing this out as multiple uses. We can use it as the overall kind of to-do list for the year. You can use it for my performance review. We can eliminate things, add things. That's kind of for you guys to have a conversation about right now.
And if I recall, you asked us also to rank them as far as our desire as to priorities.
Yeah, and I wasn't really looking for necessarily a 1 to 14. It's more of a front burner, back burner, hot item, back burner item. But if you kind of know what your top ones are or whatever, I didn't really come tonight for a planned ranking process. Again, staff's thinking about all of these things, and generally you kind of gain ground where you're able to make some progress. And if you run into brick walls and some things, you kind of put your energy into things you're being successful on. But yeah, these are all on the list. So
Okay. All right, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, General Manager Friedel. I do like the list. I appreciate, first of all, that we have a list. And secondly, with the thought that you put together to kind of boil to what you feel are either the pressing items or the items, demanding a little more attention, and trying to, put those on the tippy top of the inbox is what happens, what I call it. What I would like to see is in some of these, it's kind of like an ongoing type of an effort, like letter A, engage, train, and support CRPD staff. I mean, I see that you're targeting, 27 of 103 full-time employees that are fairly new to the organization. But that's going to be an ongoing thing. It's not like you're not going to check a box at the end of the year and say, yep, they're all trained, they're all good to go. It's kind of a moving target, and we'll be continuing to work on that. Likewise with item L, continue to work with Safe Passage. That's just an ongoing thing. We're always working with them, but it's also important. And likewise with item O, work with Arts and Culture Roundtable, enhancing opportunities. It's like kind of like ongoing. So I see those as like, yeah, they're important, but it's not like you're going to check a box at all throughout the next 12 months. They're just always going to be there. You're always going to continue working on them. Some of the others I see as, there's a target date. For example, we talked earlier tonight about the master plan, which is item 7. Mr. Mooney said maybe in 6 months we could see that draft. So on something like that, I'd like to see a target date or a time frame or a schedule. Update CRP master plan by the end of the year, by the middle of the year, by the second quarter, third quarter, something like that. And I know with the class comp study, I know that we're getting closer to that. Can we put a date there? Maybe not a specific date, but again, first quarter, second quarter, something like that. And kind of be able to say at the end of the year, yeah, we did check that box. We did get that one done. And that way it kind of gives us an idea of what the time frame is and to, which is important. And I think that's, kind of, you can go through the calendar year. But like I say, it says item F, move forward with the Orchard Skate Park. It's like, well, what does move forward mean? I'd like to see something a little more concrete there. What are you hoping to complete by the end of the year in that process? Is it getting another set of plans approved? Is it, what is it that move forward means? So just a little more structure, and you might be able to provide that, maybe not. I don't know. But that's kind of what in my ideas or goals or objectives. I like to see something measurable so that when that 12-month period is over, I can check a box as, yes, I did that. And, it's not just, work with, explore, move forward. It doesn't really give me any teeth to chew with. It's just like, I'd like to see something a little bit more. So if that's not possible, let's understand that. But if I could see in some of these items where there's actually something that we expect to get done by the next 12 months, I'd like to know what those are. So if that's possible. That would be my request.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Any other? Director Bus?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the things that are on here, we either don't have the budget to do within 12 months. So they're not really priorities. And I agree that it is like trying to figure out exactly. So if this is going to be for our priorities for 12 months, then which ones can we actually accomplish?
Well, I'm kind of styling this after the cities, and they might have the same goal out of their 10 appear 5 years in a row. Because it's the
Okay.
most, deal with homelessness, build a homeless facility. That's been on their list for 5 years, you know? So I kind of styled it after that. So I pulled out, you know, last year we had 35 capital projects. This year we have, or for the next fiscal year, we're only going to have 6.
Right.
We're out of money.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I'm like,
But we do have the money for the Borchard Skate Park, and we, you know,
Okay.
unless the bids come back way higher than we expect, but we have the money for the arena lighting, unless it's a covered arena versus poles. I mean, so many of these are variable, and, you know, are we going to get into a lawsuit with Transfo folks over pickleball? Are we going to get a lawsuit with the Dos Pinos resident over lighting? You know, so you know, a lot of stuff I'd like to say has hard finish lines that we can kind of shoot for, but working in a dynamic public setting with a board that does listen to public input, you're constantly kind of, you know, adjusting what you think is going to be the maybe finish line to eventually get there. And we do get there, but I mean, I think all of these this year can see some progress. I mean, the revenue measure, probably not, right? We just have to see what happens in the 2024 election, right?
right.
But I wanted to kind of keep the word revenue measure out there, because I don't think I should stop talking about it until we either say, forget it, we're not going to do it, and we're just going to do what we have today and take care of it. We're not going to try to build anything new, and let's just admit it. Or we're going to actually try to get the revenue to do the new stuff. Like that's, so I'm going to keep putting it on there until you guys tell me not to.
As far as for the lease that's expiring in 2027, I mean, if we were able to find a location that made sense, we're not able to get out of our lease, correct?
We
So,
want to be in this lease, and I'd love to be in here another 25 years because we just pay
okay.
utilities.
Oh, so we're just looking at extending our lease, not looking for new
But does the
space.
city want us here?
If the
we
city
don't-
says they won't be.
Okay, so you want to explore that with them this year, 3 years in advance.
Because if I have to move, I want to know 2 years in advance.
Right, I'm just asking
Yeah.
for clarification.
Yeah, if we have to
'Cause-
move our facility, I want to know 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was an option for us to potentially stay.
I don't know
Don't
what
know
they're
that.
telling me.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just heard that, or at least it's coming up, and it was kind of, so I was like, that's why I'm trying to clarify, like, do we actually have to go find new space, or is it an option to stay?
I
We don't know. So you're going to find that out with them this year.
Our lease, then we would stay, right?
Correct.
It's,
Yeah.
I don't know that we will find out, but it's something that we continue to need to discuss, because the city has approached, I think the general manager with some ideas, but nothing has been confirmed. So we're just like,
Oh.
okay, we're just.
It would be bad for us to kind of get to the end of 2027 with the idea like, hey, no worries, we'll do right by you guys. We'll treat you right.
Right,
we need to
landlords,
have a home.
landlords renew leases all the time, years in advance. That's
Right.
why I'm saying, well, why don't you just do it then, now? Or were they saying that they may do something else with this building?
So
They're up in the air.
yeah, because that
Okay.
building next door is about to be empty.
Yeah.
And
They don't want to put.
is that building and this building together worth more than them separate? Do they have a tenant that says, I'll take both buildings?
So at this point, the city
Mm.
doesn't know what they're going to do. And the city is giving you no definite.
No definite.
They know, they haven't told us, so.
Well, they could
I
take years for it. Okay.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Marissa, because a lot of these items, to me, I see a lot of moving parts. Things that, you know, the general manager sees from day to day, and something happens here, then something happens there and so forth. So there's a lot of different moving parts to this that he's having to deal with and looking for some, strong guidance. I heard Director Nichols bring up some good points. And, the more you can get defined and specifics, the better. But you also have to keep in mind that there's a lot of, like the city dealing with this building and our lease and so forth. We really don't know. So we gotta provide our staff with as much leadway, or that wasn't the right word, flexibility. But also some strong guidance as Director Nichols is, looking for us to come up with. So I'm not sure if
So
we
are
got
we
a,
supposed to rank these then and provide feedback at a later point?
I think we're just having.
Or we don't have, I just want to.
Yeah, so as a
clarification.
discussion item, I
We
wanted,
don't
like,
have-
these literally, if I didn't talk to you guys, if this wasn't an agenda item and I had the strategic plan that you guys just approved in September and said, do what's in here, this was my own to-do list. I wouldn't,
Okay,
this would be what I'd be working on, right? Like, this would be like how I would be working on
So
the
we-
items in the strategic plan. So I'm bringing this to you mostly to kind of highlight probably the bigger, sexier things that are in there than maybe some of the more small things. These are kind of the bigger items, important items that are kind of rise up in the strategic plan. But I know that you guys each have some priorities of your own, or if you can kind of root it in the strategic plan, it obviously makes it a little easier because it's like, hey, we're supposed to be working on that. But I guess as a discussion item, is a top 10 list something you guys want to have? Is kind of like the city does? Do you, there's 14 here. I'm comfortable with a list of 14. Do we want to add some others that you don't feel like you have I don't pet project, but you have a specific thing that's really important to you? You want to add here, bring it up now, talk to your fellow board members here in a public meeting and say, we need to have a 15th item on here and it's got to be this thing, and, bring that up now. Be a good time.
okay.
Director Cusworth.
So I think this is a good list, and I think your wording is fine. It reminds me of in the beginning of the year, I have a book where I put my main goals that I want to accomplish for the year. And then I look at those every month and then put smaller goals to try to accomplish those goals. And then I'll look daily at my monthly goals to see what am I going to put in here to accomplish those that are going to come to the yearly goals. So I can see what Mr. Friedel is doing. He's wanting to remember these all year because you have so many things to do that you can forget. So he wants to remember that we need pickleball courts. So that is on the list, but he's saying that he's looking that we have to look for the right locations for pickleball courts. So nothing has been definitely set. He's saying that, yes, we're going to engage and train and support our staff. We've got to remember to do that. We may not get all of them done, but I want to remember that monthly, this is something that we have to be looking at. So I kind of see it that way, that this is stuff that are my priorities. And as he said, not that all of the other things that we are always doing daily. It's like you wouldn't put, for me, maybe not you men, but I wouldn't put daily on my yearly list that I have to vacuum the house because I just do that all the time. So that's not something I would put on my yearly list, my big things that I want to accomplish that year. These are the big things, and then you break them down. So I could see that he could be looking at this, or the staff could be looking at this and saying, okay, here's what we want to do for the year. What do we need to do this month? What do we need to get done this week? What do we need to look at today? As breaking them all down. And I think that what Mr. Friedel is saying is these are what's on my mind. And just for clarification on number O, the Arts and Cultural Roundtable is a city. So we're not doing this at all. So this would be a new goal. Thank you. And it could be, if we had one meeting with them, then that we would say, okay, we are starting to work with these people. And hopefully it will be ongoing, but right now we would have to take action on that to actually say, we want to have a meeting with you. So that would be an action item that would have to happen this year. And then hopefully something like that could be an ongoing, like the safe passage, and maybe it would just become routine and not even make the list. As far as, I did have a question though. We've been talking about removing and thinning non-native wildflower friendly trees for years, ever since we got the grants, ever since Woolsey Fire. And I always hear when I talk about it, why is this not happening? It's always Fish and Wildlife is not giving us permission to go into the creek and take out those non-native palm trees. So the other day, somebody from the Stagecoach Inn told me that somebody from Fish and Wildlife was out there. And I said, well, that's kind of major. So I have been wanting to ask about this because this keeps making it on our list, and yet nothing is ever happening. And we have the money, we have the desire, we have money that's supposed to do this. It's a fire-ridden, it is a danger. We have identified it. Do we have any progress on this? Your turn.
Sure. Yeah, so it's been an ongoing process with the state departments to be able to get the environmental permits to be able to do that work. There's a couple projects that we don't have to go through that permit process. And so we're in the process of taking a look at that after they're doing some on-site meetings with our consultants. That's who was out there recently. And so I'm looking to follow back up with our consultant team to kind of see where we're at with that in the coming weeks. And then what we might start doing is dividing up the work. So originally we were going to kind of like what we do with the playgrounds, right? We had 8 playgrounds in a shade structure this past year. So instead of doing all 8 under one bid, we would maybe take a couple of them out that we don't need as heavy permits on, or no permits at all, and be able to continue to proceed on that. But from a value standpoint, staff was combining those projects together, but we're at a point, and it's something that Jim and I have talked about, and also I've talked with my staff about, hey, let's start getting some more work going on this, so that you can see, you know, the actual progress in the park system versus it's been a long time pushing paper on that. So, and I'm there with you on it.
I was very happy when I looked over the list. I made a mark there to see that that was on the list and not forgotten. So I think that that's kind of a good thing when you have something that's maybe not happening in the first year. You can at least see, no, we're still thinking about it. We're still working on it. It may not have happened yet, but we're going to get it done. So thank you for that. I was really happy to see that was on the list, because if it wasn't, I was going to bring it up. And then adding new things to the list, like, so I've talked a lot.
Director Huffer.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of what this list could be used for. Certainly, there are items like the skate park, the master plan, the class comp study, where it's relatively easy to put dates on them and say it's going to get done by such and such a date or within this time frame. But many of the others, whether it's the non-native plants and trees, which actually Costco is working on that in a fairly big area as well. But a lot of these things, you know, the two that are my hot buttons are the Quimby fees and the revenue measure. It's not going to be done this year, but it would be nice, and Director Nichols is saying we'd like to have something that's measurable, or at least get updates on at the end of each year before we do the general manager review. He gives us a year in review, which is nice, but quite honestly, there are some of those things that are pretty small and minor. But if you have a list of goals and objectives that you set early in the year, as you're doing the year in review, you could perhaps go through this same list and say, yes, we've completed the master plan. Yes, we've completed the planning for the skate park. Yes, the class comp is done, but this is where we are with non-native plants. This is where we are with Quimby fees. This is where we are with the revenue measure, so that we know that it's being worked on. And some of these things, the ad hoc committee or the standing committee may be familiar with what's going on, but if there's not yet at a point where action is to be taken, it would still be helpful for the entire board to know that, yes, pickleball courts are being worked on, and yes, we're looking at one of the other longer term items. But if it's part of the end of year review, we know if these are the goals starting the year, that they're being worked on or they've been completed.
This could become a daunting task. You know, you consider all these and all the little elements of each one, you know, for staff. I see the importance of, you know, progress reports and so forth. That's very important. But a lot of these, like I said earlier, it's a moving target.
Right, but what I'm saying is, you know, you're not going to need to have them reported on every single meeting, but once, maybe twice a year, certain items, as I say, you know, the revenue measure, we've had a committee meeting on that, but nothing's been decided. So, but it'd be helpful for the entire board to know if it's at least still on the target, or as Jim said, you know, we're going to give up on it. It's helpful for the board to know that if these are the goals and objectives, that this is where we are on these various goals and objectives. Maybe 14 items is too many. I don't know. Maybe 10 is better. But you know, the example that Jim gave of the city and housing for the homeless, that's an ongoing, but city council, I'm sure, wants to know that it's being worked on. They have a committee of the city council that is more familiar with some of the progress, but the whole city council probably would like to know, yes, we're continuing to work on it. We've done this, we haven't done that. So I think using this as sort of a guideline for the year in review process and for the general manager review could be very helpful.
I would agree. Director Buss or Nichols, any other comments or thoughts?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was hearing Director Cussworth talk about list, I too, when I was in my workaday world, would have my list, but it was a rolling list. It never ended. I just always, as things were moving to the top or to the bottom, and I would have it color coded, you know, the things that were really up to priority kind of got up here in middle priority. And I had the ongoing things that I was working on. And at the end of the month, I would always kind of refresh it. And so I always knew what was important. I mean, I kind of knew as a general manager said, you kind of know in your head what you're working on, but it's good to have that list in front of you. You just keep it on your desk or on your computer screen or your whiteboard, whatever it is. I've used them all just to keep it as a reminder. But I also really liked it when I could check it off, that it was done, you know, or line it out, or, you know, delete it, whatever. Okay, done. And to do that. And in some of those, and I knew that like the ongoing ones, you never cross those off. You know, it's just always going to be there. You just know that you're always working on it. So, you know, whether it's a date or a priority or a top to bottom, whatever it is, I think just to be able to know, and I think like Director Huff was saying, maybe it's a quarterly report where it's just, okay, here's the top 10 or top 14, and here's where we are on them this quarter. You know, these are all done. And by the way, I have 2 more that I've added to the list, you know, based on what the board has given for direction over the last 3 months. You know, that can always happen. You know, things get pushed aside and other things move because it's a dynamic process, just like we talked about earlier. You know, it's not something that, you know, we decide today and then nothing changes for 12 months. You know, things are always coming up and moving up or down. So, you know, I think that would, you know, whatever would be the appropriate way to deal with it. To me, I was just looking to see how do we measure what's accomplished and define, you know, what the expectation is. Because, you know, ultimately the general manager is looking to this board for direction on, is this the right 14 and is there a particular order? So at the end of the 12 months, you know, he feels like he's been successful based on the direction we've given him. I think that's what we need to do.
Any other thoughts, comments, or questions? Jim, how would you like to see this move forward?
Well, I think, because I didn't, consider, add, delete, modify, propose 2024 goals and objectives. So I don't know if you guys want to like sit with it for a couple weeks. I bring it back as I don't know that I would change anything right now. And then you guys decide yet again whether you want to tweak or add, delete, or whatever. Or whether you're comfortable with this list as it is and just say, hey, Jim, this is a list of 14 things. 6 months from now, tell us where you are in all of that. And then at the year-end review, tell us where are you. And then, this is our first year using it. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And a year from now, we decide, there's a different or better way. But, this is sort of my to-do list from the strategic plan and from past board policy direction, often through either the budget or specific action items. So unless you guys tell me otherwise, this is actually what I was going to be working on. And like I would give you an example of where all this could just completely go haywire. Obviously we've had all sorts of weird things happen to us over the past years. I don't want to bring one of those on, but a pandemic, for example, or a shooting or a fire, kind of tweaks your priorities. But we also have, the big giant gorilla of a project. We have a $10 million grant out there. If that thing lands, that's going to take up a big chunk of this. If we actually, somebody writes us back and says, yeah, you have $10 million, figure out how to find another 10 and you got a new community center. So, that could change all this if that were to happen. But you see, I didn't add it to the list just to how confident I am getting that 10 million. Sorry. You guys did a crazy amount of work and I'm hopeful.
Yes.
But
Yes, Director Kessworth.
I think at this point, this is your list. You based it on the strategic plan. Why don't we go with this list? And in 6 months, we can come back and just have a brief thing. And it might just be, we had a meeting on this, we did this. Some of them are just going to be ongoing. I don't think you have to give us a whole thing on safe passage unless there's something specific. But I would keep this brief and we can go from there. And then I think, like you're saying, if we like this process, then we can tweak it or do something else. As an interesting aside to my list, at the end of 2020, I went to see if I met any goals, and I had forgotten to write any goals for 2020. And I thought, since I wouldn't have made them all because of the pandemic, that must have been.
You did it.
I've never in like 40 years, I've not written my yearly goals except for 2020. And I guess I just forgot. And I thought, well, look at that. So like you're saying, you never know when everything's going to be completely changed. But unless somebody has something a burning thing to add to this list or to take off from this list, why don't we just keep it simple and go with the list? This is the one that Jim made and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think we've got a little bit more discussing by the board and where we go from here. But we do have a speaker on, pardon? Yes, on 9A, Janet Wall, please.
I'd like to wish all of you a happy new year. I'm Janet Wall. I've lived at 1901 Tamarack across from Triumphal Park for 38 years. I'm here tonight to listen to and speak to your discussion regarding the board's 2024 goals and objectives, which I've learned more about since listening. In particular, item E, locations for additional pickleball courts. Strategic Plan 2.1 states you're looking to receive and evaluate input from the community. So I have brought you a little input from the community. We ran a petition just for the last month, and we have 350 signatures for you opposing relining the tennis courts or building additional pickleball courts there. As I stated at your November 16th meeting, my neighbors and I are particularly concerned regarding the proposal to change the character of Triumphal Park to allow multiple noise-inducing pickleball courts there. In that regard, we reached out to additional neighbors during the holiday season. And as I stated, we have 350 petition signers and they're still coming in. So there are more. Other than the several dozen immediate neighbors to Triumphal Park in the Village Homes and Foxmore Hills neighborhoods, most of the petitioners live in those two neighborhoods. Most of the people who signed will not hear the noise from the pickleball courts. However, we were encouraged to know so many people empathize with our position because they would not want to live near pickleball courts. It included folks who play pickleball and said, specifically to me, no, I love the game. I would not want to live near it. Other petitioners play tennis at the park and believe their ability to continue to play tennis will be overrun by pickleball players. This is a valid concern. As I learned, collecting some of the petitions, individuals who play tennis at Triumphal Park are playing there because their courts in Oak Park, Dos Vientos, Newberry Park, and even Calabasas and Woodland Hills are now completely absorbed by pickleball. So that was another part of our petition. My main concern regarding our tennis courts for pickleball is my certainty that the highly irritating noise of pickleball games will create stress in our daily lives. This type of continual high-pitched noise early in the morning and late in the evening may cause additional health issues for those of us who already deal with REM sleep disorder, atrial fibrillation, and sleep apnea. Another concern that doesn't encompass just Triumphal Park is the method which targeted Triumphal, Oak Brook, and Del Prado. I didn't find any evidence that existing noise levels at those locations were considered at all. I believe it's an integral component to building more pickleball courts when it is already established that pickleball is an extremely noisy sport. So I'm asking you to reconsider how this board can satisfy the demand for more pickleball courts without disrupting the lives of those who live near and enjoy our community neighborhood parks for what they currently offer residents and the community at large. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Janet, very much, and appreciate all that you do within our community. And go ahead.
So George, I heard that Don Robinson is retiring from SMMC. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I talked with a possible replacement last night.
Okay.
So, thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Janet, for being here. Can you remind me what the name of the housing development is at the end of the canyon behind the park? The new one,
Majestic Oaks,
that's right.
behind the gates, yeah.
Okay, yes.
And actually, we did not approach the people in Majestic Oaks
Okay,
because of the gates. So
sure.
I was not able to meet any of them, around the park or anything like that.
Okay.
We talked to a lot of people. And there were many people who said to us, well, I empathize with you, and I would sign, but I don't sign anything. And I think that's a very valid concern in our community today.
Mhm.
There's so much, spam and, you might sell my information to somebody. That kind of thinking is really valid,
Mhm.
So I encountered quite a few people who didn't want to sign, but it wasn't because there were two people that I met who said, oh no, we want pickleball there. And they weren't the pickleball players I know from our neighborhood. I don't know. I know Jim is aware from the meeting that we have a tennis court in Village Homes and it was restriped for pickleball and it turned into a vicious thing.
Mm.
And attorneys were called in. They actually, one of the board members who I talked to about it said, oh, we're not allowed to discuss that.
Mm.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. For
Thank
coming
you very
tonight.
much.
And thank you for enduring the lengthy period of time before you could share your comments and concerns. Okay, back to our item on the 9A. Listening to Director Kessler's suggestion. Any other board members have any comments or questions associated with next step from here? Yes, Director Nichols.
I was gonna say, I don't mind sticking with these 14 items. Again, I believe the general manager has done a good job of boiling down a lot of pages, better than I could, or probably any of us. But if we're going to move in the direction that Director Cusworth was suggesting, I would request a quarterly report rather than just 6 months.
I would agree.
And then where possible, it doesn't have to be to begin with, but in that quarterly report, perhaps an update on timeframe and schedules for those that do have timeframes and schedules. You know, obviously, a lot of these, as we mentioned, don't and never will have, but there are others, just to give us an update on, you know, where things stand. That would be my request.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, I was thinking 3 months and then it'll give us time also as board members to, you know, go over these again and think of items that are important to you with a specific list and come back in approximately 3 months and share them with our general manager. You can share them prior to that too, but so that we all are kind of moving together. It's, again, this is, you know, pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of meat here. And I think we all need to be on the same page, literally, and with the same goals and objectives for the goals and objectives and the tasks that our general manager is undertaking. So if we can revisit this in 3 months
For sure.
approximately.
Yep.
And any of the board members and along with the staff, if you have any thoughts about how you would like to move forward and help our general manager in accomplishing these goals and objectives, it give you an opportunity also to share with Jim. I think is very important. And again, I don't want us to get too bogged down with little details, you know. There's, as Director Nichols mentioned, there's some kind of larger milestones and so forth that can be identified, but I don't want to get too much into minutia where our general manager is going to be focused strictly on that versus the overall item for him and the staff to accomplish. You know. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thoughts come to mind? Okay, Jim, you ready to roll?
Got some marching orders for sure.
Well, again, it's something all of us want to accomplish and appreciate you, as mentioned, identify these specific ones, and we'll continue to move forward as a great park district. So we're now moving on to item 10, A through D, reports and announcements. Anybody have any? I have some comments on item A, recreation. Any other board members?
I have a comment for recreation.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Juliet over at Conejo. She's been doing a lot of great things over at McCrae, and I'm sure she's got something going on. I saw they're going to be having a roping over there. I don't know if Juliet's behind that. When I went to the Safe Passage toy giveaway, she was showing me how her staff had made a big new thing, like going into Santa's workshop. And I just think I'm seeing Juliet and her staff everywhere. And I think she's just got a lot of energy and she's doing a great job. And I'm just really proud to have her on our staff. She's just a, you know, drop of sunshine.
I would echo that. Do I recall she lives out of the geographic area? Is she a resident?
She moved. She's in Thousand Oaks now.
Oh, she did.
Mhm.
Okay, because I was thinking of all, as was mentioned by Director Cusworth, all the involvement and seeing her every place. I would totally agree. I was just going to make a comment on Safe Passage. I also, as other board members may have attended the gift giveaway. And it says 121 children were involved at the location and 3 gifts each. That's must have really made their Christmas holiday extra special to have 3 additional gifts. Was there any specific comments that you heard via the grapevine or whatever about what the families' comments were about this event?
I think overall families just really appreciated it. We had, I think, I want to say Kurt said there was probably over 700 at Conejo condos area. And then this was at Conejo Community Center. And then America saw at Shadow's apartment an increase from last year also. So, I mean, everybody just seemed really appreciative of it and I'm grateful.
Were there any quote unquote gifts left over?
I don't know the exact answer to that.
Okay,
So
I did-
I believe there was, and we usually store them for next year.
That's just what I didn't say. There's
So.
not.
But I don't know. They might have actually given them all out this year, but I can find out for you.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a great event. And then one other comment on the elementary music program, the fact that 227 individuals are now involved in music that otherwise wouldn't have this opportunity, I think is great. So, good. So compliment your staff on that area also. Okay, any of the other items under reports and announcements? All right, we're now moving on to item 11, department reports, Parks Division, Mr. Mooney.
Thank you, Chair Lang. No report, just Happy New Year, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mooney? Yes, Director Huffer.
Yeah, just a quick question. What's the finish date for Conejo Creek North? I drove through there briefly and saw that it being worked on and got the one great big huge giant structure that's going in there. So they're getting close.
Yeah, they're getting close. So the 2 to 5 is nearly ready to open. We just have to walk it with the contractor, final site walk and take the fence down. The 2 to 5 age range, but the 5 to 12 is the larger tower that you saw. We're hoping in the next few weeks, probably at the latest, it would be the end of January. With a little bit of rain, we did have some flooding, so they had to pump some water out and kind of get their soil set up a little better. And then just with the holidays, right? So, they weren't working all the way through every week and such. So, but yeah, hopefully in the next few weeks is the goal.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if no other comments or questions for Mr. Mooney, we're moving on to 11B, Recreation Division.
So
Rochelle.
Thank you, Chair Ling. Just a couple of updates. So registration for our winter program is on Monday. The out of district registration is on Monday, the 15th, which is actually a holiday for us, but because of the technology world, we are able to have the out of district registration on that day. So we're going to be doing that, and then we'll answer any questions or solve any problems on Tuesday. I have a feeling that one of our board members is going to discuss our polar bear plunge with you and tell you about his experience, but I will let you know this was the first time they actually were sold out. And I did meet a couple of people that were 80 and 71 and basically were like, came by themselves and were like, this was so great to have this offered. So it was really great to hear some stories there. And then the Teen Center had their New Year's Eve party. I did visit that. Small turnout, but the staff did an awesome job, had lots of things for the kids to do. A lot of girls there. It was really interesting. So, and they just had a ball, really enjoying themselves, very engaging and social, everybody that was there. But again, staff did a great job with planning that and had a lot of fun. So hopefully as the next year comes, it'll just get bigger and bigger, but we'll see. Kids are doing lots of different things now. So with that, I'm available
That
for
concludes it.
questions.
Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Ms. Callis. Just wanted to know if you had any significant feedback on your new program. The guide that you mail out.
Oh, the program guide. I'm
Yeah.
all, what new program did I
Yes,
do?
yeah.
I'm all, the staff are always coming up with new programs in that thing. Which one do I not know about? No, we did have some comments. We had 2 positive comments and we had 1 that had concerns, and we listened to the concerns and we believe we might be able to solve But that's really it. So, I mean, we have a family that, let's say has 3 kids and they only want to go to, let's say, Borchard, and they only want to go on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock for whatever classes are offered. That way all the kids are there at the same time. There's not really a way to find what's available. So we're going to tweak, we're having conversations with our, 9 Planets folks to see if there's a way to add a time search, which I believe there will be. So that will help parents be able to pick location, time, and at least see what's available. I can't promise anything is, but overall positive feedback so far. So we now have a marketing committee that is comprised of, I think, about 5 of our staff, different positions. And so they'll be meeting, I believe, sometime this month to kind of follow up and see if there's additional tweaks or what we might want to do. But we're really happy with it. So
Good.
we'll see how the registration goes. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Talking about new, and feedback, et cetera, the new revised logo. Have you had many comments on that? And has there been a concerted effort to inform the community about a new logo or anything like that?
Yeah, there's been social media push out, and it's all over in the program guide. So we're using that. We're trying to get all of the formats changed on anything electronic and paper. And most of the comments I hear, people love it and they really like the little bunny. So again, it's one of those things where it's revised. It's not a whole new thing. We're taking the history and we're just brought it up to date a little bit. So I think people appreciate that. And I really haven't heard anything negative
Yeah,
in
I'm
regards
just
to the
curious, because
refresh.
I too like that little bunny. Kind of subtle, but it's there.
Mhm, mhm.
Yes, Director Cusworth.
So I picked up the program guide today because at the Casa holiday party, I got a ukulele. And I thought, well, I don't know how to play it. And I went into the adult section, looked through, and I found ukulele classes. So I'm looking forward to the 8th, hoping I get into the ukulele classes. I'll be giving you updates on if I can learn, because I'm afraid that my musical experience is a little bit like Director Buss's, where you said you tried about 5 different instruments. So maybe ukulele will be my instrument. But I thought that the guide looked very nice. And you did also mention to look for the Conejo. I noticed that in the new program guide. I thought, oh, good, it's on there. But for me, just looking for adults, what I did notice is that there wasn't as much for seniors as there used to be, but I guess that's because the seniors are just included in the adults. So, and then also the seniors also have their own program guide at the Global Center. So
And
anyway.
they do the Global Gazette, but because the Global Gazette has all their trips and all the other stuff that goes on in the building, not just the classes. But yeah, now adults can find their classes in the adult area. And then anything that's 55 and older or 50 and older is just in the senior section, because those classes will not have someone that's 48 in them.
Right. Anyway, I thought it was good because I was specifically looking for ukulele, so I did not have to look at every center. So that worked for me.
Very good. Item C, will somebody be making a report for?
I
Melissa?
don't think she's stuck around. did she?
Okay.
Oh, wow. She actually waited? Okay.
Yeah, just let me know.
So she is on?
She has no report.
Oh,
She-
no
yeah,
report.
She just typed in.
Okay.
Report.
Okay, General Manager's report, Mr. Friedel.
I remember running into you folks at all sorts of events all throughout December, so I won't rehash things that you probably mentioned. But it was a busy beginning of the month. It was an enjoyable holiday in the second half of the month. Back at it. Thanks, Jody, for being here in 8 hours notice in place of Aline, who is not feeling great. And as you know, Melissa's out, so we're a little, we're getting hit by some bug. So thanks, Jody, for filling in for Aline tonight. But no, I think I spoke enough tonight already. Excited about the coming year. Appreciate the board's interest and support for all the stuff we're working on, and we'll go get it in 2024.
Thank you, Jim. Questions for Mr. Friedler, General Manager? Okay, moving on to item E, Director's Reports and Follow-up Reports on Meetings, Conferences Attended. Start with Marissa.
Yes. Okay, I think we were all at most of the same events. The Starlight Gala, I have my list and I gave it away. Dana's retirement party, CRPD holiday luncheon. What else did we go to? There's pretty much all of
State of the
those.
city.
Oh,
Look-
State of the
looking at
City
your list.
luncheon. Yes. So went to all of those. They were very informative. Had a great time at the parties. That's all I have for you.
Very good, thank you. Director Nichols.
Ditto what she said. All the December activities and more, but that's, that, I don't really have anything more to add. Oh, except we did have a Rancho Potrero Committee, ad hoc committee meeting. Other than that, I saw you all everywhere.
Director Cusworth.
Well, of course, you didn't see me at a lot of those because of course they all happened when I went on vacation again. But when I was in Playa del Carmen, you know, as all of you do, when we travel, we always look at the parks. So I did go around and look at some of their parks. It was interesting to me that in their one big park where the people live, where it's not just, you know, tourists, they had huge Disney figures. Like at a few parks. I thought that was interesting. And another thing that was notable to me is that many of the beaches there are private. You can't get onto them. And I thought, well, that's kind of nice here because our beaches are so accessible and doesn't really have to do with us, but it made me happy that we live in a place where most of the beaches are, in fact, I think all California beaches are public, even if somebody lives on that beach up to the high tide line is public and you can get access to it. But they did have big parks there with swing sets and everything else, just like we do, but just huge Disney figures, like Beauty and the Beast. And I was very surprised. But no, but I think I went to the other things that people didn't go to and then had my family over and they all started throwing up. So it was really interesting trying to manage the whole thing, but I'll leave it at that.
And I'll just interject in talking about public access to beaches. As you know, the MRC, we have a special division that's working on that for our coast. So yeah, that's a big positive for public access. Director Huffer.
Yes, most of the events that were mentioned, State of the City, the employee holiday party, Dana Miller's retirement, I was there. I did miss the not being able to get to the Silver Starlight Ball, which is always one of my favorite events, and not able to get to the toy distribution for the Safe Passage kids. That's always a lot of fun. But did explore a few parks between rain and cold and dark in Seattle. So with my 3-year-old grandson, which was a lot of fun. But I did get back in time for the Polar Plunge, which was on last Saturday. And they did have to reroute us walking through campus. Normally they have you walk up to the top of Mount Clef and then walk back down, but it was a wee bit too muddy for that. So we just walked around campus for a mile or so and then plunged in the pool, and they said, oh, we've kicked up the temperature. And the first plunge I took, but once you got used to it, you sort of got numb. But no, but we had a great turnout for it. It was fun to see kids and adults, and there were even a few people older than I was. So I wasn't the absolute oldest at the plunge. So, and I didn't have to be rescued even once. So that was good.
And what was the temperature?
Maybe 5 minutes. Yeah.
And what was
Unfortunately, they directed me to the ladder. I had to swim from the shallow end to the deep end. I thought, oh gosh, I got to pull myself out of the pool, but they directed me to the ladder, so that made life a little easier. So
So did they give you a range of what the temperature was?
What, for the pool?
Yeah,
I
the
think I said it
water.
was 74 or something on. Yeah, yeah. So it was fun.
Okay, thank you, Director Huffer. Thank you all directors. I attended many of the same events in addition to Conservancy and MRCA meetings. And I think, oh, and then I spent a number of meetings here at the district signing MRCA grants. So I was kept busy and off the streets. All right, that concludes our department reports. We're moving on to item 12, requests for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Anybody have any specific requests for?
Not a request, but maybe I missed it somewhere, but normally we get the list of upcoming events.
Yeah, we didn't get a folder, maybe.
That might have been,
Yeah.
yeah, it might have been a
A lien?
casualty of a lien being
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I figured that's
I
probably.
would
the-
agree.
So, okay.
Oh.
Eileen said she didn't have anything exciting to. in your packets.
Be a very boring month, or 6 months or whatever. so.
Okay, item 13, items to the public. We have no public. Anybody online? No. Moving on to item 14, executive closed session. We have no need for a closed session. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
You have a couple things, more things to sign. So this is the one that was from last